And hi, everybody. Welcome to Proline, direct from Las Vegas. We are the longest-running sports handicapping show in America, going back several decades. I'm Dave Cokin, joined by Jim Feist. We're going to take a look at some college basketball, the NFL playoffs, of course, including the Steelers-Patriots showdown. First, Jim, if people want to subscribe to the channel, it's free, and they get great stuff for free as well.
That's right, Dave. Just go to ProLineTV.com, click on the subscribe button, and you'll get notifications on new videos. Plus, you'll be sent a code to get 7 days of my service absolutely free. Just check out the brand new website, JimFeist.com, where you can get daily picks, service packages from myself, Dave, and the nation's top handicappers. Whether you're at home, work, or on the go, our new website gives you access to the latest scores and odds, links to articles, and my coveted fast facts, and the opportunity to watch Proline whenever you want.
That's pretty good. I like the website. It looks great.
Thank
so
you.
Before we dive into this week's Proline poll question, let's look back at last week where our audience, our audience and everybody who bets won last weekend, I guess, overwhelmingly voted that the Patriots would win by double digits over the Texans on Saturday, which they were correct about. As for Sunday, a little different story. The home teams were 6-0 straight up and against the spread. On Sunday, both dogs went outright, and you say, well, that must be good for the books. Nope.
Not so
Just
much.
absolutely destroyed the sports books here in Nevada in an absolute nightmare weekend. William Hill said it was the worst single-day loss in the company's 5-year Nevada history. How about that? Now on to this week's poll question. And we'll look at an individual award, which I'm going to tell you, I've never cared much about these, but we know the audience loves to talk about them. The NFL MVP will be announced on the 4th of February, I believe it is. So we asked our audience who they thought would take home the honor this year. And the candidates were 4 quarterbacks. 3 of them are still playing. Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, and one is on crutches, and that's Derek Carr. And who knows, they might still be playing had he not got hurt.
Well, based on the way Kansas City played last week, you're probably right. Dave, 48% of our audience thinks that Matty Ice's year, with Aaron Rodgers coming in second at 29% of the votes. Quick analysis here would be they all deserve it. You know, they've all been good. If you took any of them away from their teams, the other teams would be nothing. And because the quarterback means a lot in the NFL, and obviously you got 4 really good quarterbacks, the final 4. And so there's a lot of really bad ones out there and average ones out there, and they're not here. So it does mean a lot.
Well, you got 4 teams left in the playoffs, and you've got 3 of the guys that were in the poll, and Ben Roethlisberger. A pretty good quartet of quarterbacks. So I don't want to hear it when people say, oh, you know, it's overrated. No, it's
You've
not.
got quite a few Super Bowl rings in here, too.
You think? What, Brady's got, what, 4? Roethlisberger's got 3.
Two, I thought 2. Was it
Big
2?
Ben's got 3.
Has he got 3?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Matty Ice does not have any.
Ryan doesn't have any.
Nope.
And Rodgers has, what, 2? 1 or 2?
I thought it was 1.
I think it might be 1.
Yeah.
I would say.
I think the number is 7. I'm not sure Roethlisberger has 3 championships. I thought it was 2.
I thought it was 3. Well, we'll ask him. The bottom line is these guys, if I had to pick one for MVP, I think Ryan's had the best year. You know, Brady missed the 4 games, so that kind of hurts him. Carr, unfortunately, missed the end of the season with the broken leg, so that kind of knocks him out. So it's down to Ryan and Rodgers. Now, if you're asking me who I think is the better quarterback, it's Rodgers. But I think, you know, it's a full season award, so I would agree with the audience and say Matt Ryan.
It's not a bad choice. A great year. He's come off a couple average years, which he wasn't looking that good the last 2 years. This year has been incredible.
No.
They got new coach there. They got Shanahan, who may move on as a head coach somewhere else. God, I can't see him in San Francisco, but he could take that job. And it's like
he should have a good grace period there, because I mean, unless you're just a diehard 49ers fan with rose-colored glasses, they're going to be bad for at least
Well, the good thing is they got rid of the general manager.
Yeah,
so you got a little bit of a clean
plus.
slate there. Ownership's still questionable, but the general manager is gone, and I think that's a big plus. But anyway, back to this. I can't argue with Matty Ice or Aaron Rodgers. And, they didn't mention Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh, I know.
Who's had a
Phenomenal.
tremendous
year. The problem with you got to divide it in Dallas between the two rookies who have been sensational.
The amazing thing is they don't talk about Dak Prescott as being the most valuable player. It's always Elliott.
Fabulous. We're going to talk about that for a moment. I first would just want to thank everybody for participating in this week's poll question and remind you that we post a new Proline poll question every Monday morning that you can be found on our respective social media networks, and the results get announced right here on the show.
And if you'd like to send us a suggestion for a Proline poll question of the week, or if you have any questions about our selections or service packages, send me a direct message on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and I'll get right back to you.
So let's pick this up on Prescott. And by the way, I'm from New England. I say Prescott, all right? That's the way. Be thankful I'm not throwing the complete Boston area accent in and saying Doc Prescott. He might already be better than Romo.
I was a Romo fan for many years. He came out of, I think, Eastern Carolina. Eastern Illinois. I always liked the guy. I thought he was a little bit of a gunslinger and a little careless with the ball at times, many times. And then his scrambling ability was there, but by doing so, he got himself hurt a number of times. Prescott seems a little bit more sturdy. He's a little bit sturdier kind of guy, and I think he can take a few more hits than he has. Kind of like a Russell Wilson type body. Yeah, and that statement is hard because he's been around to such a short time. And
right.
Romo's been, but based on what I've seen, yes, but, and the but is the offensive line. He has such a good offensive line. Tony didn't always have that. And when I don't care,
but
folks.
Romo wasn't a big moment quarterback. That's just the way it is.
That's the problem. He didn't do it. But there's a lot of quarterbacks like that.
Absolutely. It's not a knock on Romo. So let's talk about Tony Romo for a second. Where is he going to end up? Now, Jerry Jones says we want to keep him here. He's not going to stay there. He's not going to be a backup quarterback, okay? There's a lot of teams that are going to be willing to give up something for him. It's not going to be huge. I don't see Dallas getting a first-round draft choice or anything like that. I think it's going to be like a third or a fourth.
Well, Tony's at the end of his career, and he's fragile. What's he played? 2 games in 3 years or 2 years?
Hasn't played a full schedule since 2012.
Oh, there you go. So if you gamble on him, you're going to have a good running game and a good offensive line because you can't put him back there in the pocket taking hits all the time.
We came up, I think, in talking about this. It wasn't like we rehearsed this or anything, but we happened to be talking about this in the green room before we started shooting. And I do think the team you mentioned from the NFC West, and it's not the Rams, and it's not the 49ers, that might be a destination for him because the Cardinals have to be looking at Carson Palmer right now and saying, that's over.
Carson Palmer's done, and they don't have a backup.
No.
Not somebody that you want to depend on. Now, Tony is not going to be there for a long time either, but they have the talent on the squad to still do some damage.
Right, they're in the hunt now.
They're still kind of there because the teams in their division are not that good now. Seattle has slipped. The lowest paid offensive line in the league is Seattle. So they're not going to do much until they get offensive line. San Francisco's a mess. The Rams are a mess. Arizona could win it.
It's a very winnable division for them.
Absolutely.
Seattle's defense is still great, but they are going to start to get older. And that's going to be more injuries. It's just the nature of the beast.
And it's money, Dave. It's money.
I
it's
think
all
that
about
makes
money.
a lot of sense.
Go back to the rookie years that Wilson was there. He's making like $600,000 a year. That's the rookie thing in the contract. And they were winning. They had the defense. Everybody's getting paid a lot of money. The offensive line was a monster. Their running game was a monster. And Wilson was just playing out of his mind. Well worth more money than the $600,000, but that's the rookie contract deal. So once he gets to the $20 million, $17 million a year, they got to start dropping players.
Right.
They can't pay the offensive line. They got to get rid of some defensive. I mean, they gave up the best center or one of the best centers that went down to New Orleans. I mean, a lot of that's financial. So that's the structure of the NFL today. Pay the quarterbacks too much money, which is crazy because they are fragile and they get hurt and then they're not there and then you're stuck. if you look at that league, the West, Arizona with a decent quarterback for 1 year could win that division.
Yeah, I think so.
And Tony Romo could be that guy.
That would be that'd be a great fit for
Everybody
him.
talks.
I don't think he wants to go to a bad team. I don't think he wants to go to a cold weather team.
No.
I had originally said, well, maybe he'll end up with the Bears because he's got a connection to the area, and they definitely are on the lookout for a quarterback in Chicago. But
he's got to play in freezing weather.
I don't think he wants. And by the way, is there any chance for the Bears to really win right now? Not really.
No, not with the teams that are in.
Not
that
the
division.
reality is that they've got some changes that they have to make. Arizona sounds like a perfect fit.
Everybody talked about Denver, and I like the fit of Denver, but the problem is they have 2 young quarterbacks there that can play. And with more experience and more training, Simeon and
Paxton Lynch.
they're guys.
They're not going to give up on Lynch yet. They don't know about him. Now, the other team that was interesting was the Rams, because it's only 1 year in, but I think there's at least a good deal of evidence that suggests that Jared Goff is not going to be an NFL quarterback.
Well, there was evidence he wasn't an NFL quarterback before they drafted him, and that was a crazy situation. I don't know if they can afford to say. I mean, if you want to talk about that, dumping a guy that's there with you're paying a lot of money
after 1 year, they don't like doing that.
Then
because it's embarrassing.
You got to go to another Texas team in Houston.
And I don't know what they do.
They're paying this guy $17 million a year.
It's all
he can't
salary
throw the
cap
ball.
money. You can't just say, well, we made a mistake and pay him off. It's not like baseball where you can, if you just want to pay the guy and send him walking, you can do that. You can't do it in the NFL because the salary cap hits.
Yeah, it's a mess when they sign these guys to these big numbers and they really don't know what they're doing. The front office is the one that needs to get fired for doing it.
So, if you want to ask us any kind of sports wagering question, just go to ProlineTV.com, drop us a line. Doesn't cost anything, and speaking of not costing anything, make sure to hit the subscribe button to get 7 full days of action free.
Plus, you can go to JimFeist.com for free stats, articles, videos, my free fast facts, and plays from the nation's top handicappers.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at some of this weekend's conference championship final action. Stay tuned. All right, so here we go. We're into the conference championships, Jim, and I think this is a fair statement. It's not a take on what I think is going to happen in the game, but if you go back to last week, Pittsburgh left a ton of points on the field against Kansas City with some shaky play calling in the red zone. They could have won that game by 25 points. The Patriots' margin of victory was actually misleading. They didn't play very well against Houston. I think the Patriots have to step up their game this week. At the same time, Pittsburgh cannot leave those points off the board if they have an opportunity to get them against this team. You can make that mistake against Kansas City, which is a limited team, and settle for 6 field goals and get a win. You do that against the Patriots, you're not leaving Foxborough with a victory.
I have to give Kansas City a little bit of a credit on the defensive side because they were able to play pretty good red zone defense.
And how much of that was Pittsburgh? And I was going crazy watching the game. It's like they can't stop Bell. Give him the football. And instead they're throwing the ball down there. It's like, what are you doing? You ran the ball all the way down there. Your offensive line is killing their defensive line. Any little hole, Bell's going to find and slip through it. I mean, just give him the damn ball. These coaches drive me nuts sometimes. It all goes back to that Seattle Patriots thing a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl. Pete Carroll, and I don't care what anybody says, it's the worst play call in the history of pro football, and if you don't think so, you don't know what you're talking about, and I do. That was a stupid play call. I don't care if the other team knows it's coming. If they can't stop it, you keep doing it until they find a way to do it. If they give the ball to Bell in the red zone last week, particularly in a couple of situations where they're like 2nd and 2, and they went away from it, they win that game going away.
I can't argue with that because there was no demonstration by Kansas City that they could stop Bell. The other thing I wonder is, doesn't Pittsburgh have a second back?
I don't need one. This guy will carry the ball 40 times.
But your fatigue and injuries come into play, and different styles are running.
But they actually have got some decent depth at that position.
Nobody else ran the ball.
No.
The whole game. I mean, I couldn't believe that they stuck with one guy the whole time. If fatigue, injuries come into play this isn't an easy game, and running backs don't last long in the league. So I mean, they didn't shake it up. They didn't blend it at all. I thought it was a terrible game plan by Pittsburgh. Between the 20s, they were great.
Yeah.
Kansas City, Andy Reid, Alex Smith. I don't know what the story is there with the conservative.
You know what? If you looked at all the stats on them, what they were was what they were. They're kind of an average football team. And I give Andy Reid credit because he keeps getting this team to the playoffs, and I don't think they're a playoff caliber team.
They're a playoff caliber team as long as the other teams in their division suck.
But Reid finds a way. If you match up the rosters, of the teams that were still playing last week, and I think Kansas City
were the worst.
Clearly the worst team on paper. So to me, I give Reid credit for getting them that
Not
far.
necessarily when you look at Houston.
Oh, I forgot about them.
Yeah, them.
But I'll say this. If you've got a good defense, you can stay in games. And Houston does have a very good defense.
Yes.
Kansas City's defense really wasn't that good. You get the impression that, they didn't give up that many points. But if you look at their efficiency numbers, especially against the run, they were terrible. And I'll give Pittsburgh credit for that. We're going to ram the ball down their throats. I don't know why they got away from doing it. And I will give the Steelers credit for this. At the end of the game, after they held off the 2-point conversion, thanks to the penalty on the left tackle, they did use some imagination to get that first down that they really needed and make sure Kansas City didn't get the football back. But to me, that's where you do use the imagination, when you're in your own end of the field and you've got to get it out of there and maintain possession of the ball. When you get down to the other team's red zone, go with your strength. If they get away from that against the Patriots, they will not win this game.
Well, Patriots are a different animal.
Boy.
When you look at Belichick and Brady and what they've done and the number of conference championships and the Super Bowls.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, the domination they've had in that division. You're talking about Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets. Really lower-end ball clubs. They're not really that good. They're competitive at times. They win a game here or there, but they're not really that strong.
No, not a threat.
Belichick and Brady have had a little cushy situation for a number of years because of that, because it's not really as strong. But the NFL right now, across the board, is not that strong. I mean, you got most of the teams. I mean, there might be 6 good teams. They're not great teams. And there's no real strong defenses. There's the old days, you'd say, run the ball and play great defense. And that's how you win championships.
You can't with the rules the way they are now.
No, they've changed the rules so much. Throw the ball 60 yards, the guy bumps into you, you get a 60-yard penalty. It's bullshit. It really is.
So. Not to get way off topic, but they've got to do away with the spot foul on the defensive pass interference. That's crazy.
Go to the college rule. It's 15 yards, first down, that's it.
Yeah, that's enough.
You can't make it a 60-yard penalty. I mean, for God's sake.
No, and you want to see the ball in the air this weekend. That other game, holy cow. They can't put the number high enough to keep people from betting Green Bay and Atlanta to go over the total. It's just an avalanche.
This is an interesting situation. When you look at the line on this game, let me look at the current number. 61, open 59.5. I bet it over at that moment. 61's a big number. They played earlier in the year. It was 33-32, 65 points, same field, same stars, quarterbacks, et cetera, But the league doesn't provide the defenses with the tools to stop people.
No, that's why you see on every play where there's an incompletion, it's like every single play the receiver jumps up and is looking for a flag.
Right.
And a lot of times they get them.
Yeah, and a lot of times they don't get them. They don't get them when there was one.
I know.
There's so many missed calls.
Tough game to officiate.
Oh,
it really is.
It's brutal. Roger, the guy that gets paid all that money, he needs to retire and let somebody else that knows football make some of these rules, because it's bull. It's bottom line is bull.
An interesting note, by the way, which has nothing to do with handicapping, but it's interesting. I will read this off the notes here. The Super Bowl ticket resale market slumped minutes after the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. Before Sunday's playoff game, the cheapest ticket price to Super Bowl 51 on StubHub was $4,195. As soon as the game ended, Cowboys lose on the field goal as time runs out. The get-in price was down 20% to $3,349. Tickets in the lower end zone dropped 18% to $4,307. So Dallas is still America's team as far as ticket sales are concerned.
Great following, and, arguably they were the best team in football this year. They had the best record. They got the best offensive line. They got a really, really good quarterback and a really, really good running back. And their defense isn't so bad. They got good wide receivers. They got the big-name owner. They got the big-name coach.
And they got the big-time spike on first down, which was a really bad decision.
Yeah, there's some strange stuff going on out there.
The Dallas Cowboys this year basically had one legitimate loss. They throw out the Philadelphia game because they sat most of the guys. They lost 2 games to the Giants. One of those, the Giants were the better team. Go back to week 1, if whoever it was,
Williams,
if he gets out of bounds, they win that football game.
Right. He stayed in bounds. Clock runs out. They don't get their incredibly good field goal kicker on the field to kick the field goal and win the game.
I agree. I think the best team in the league was the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. Now, they came out, I don't know, I don't think they were flat, but they had been off a little bit. But Aaron Rodgers has just been, I'm not, I even sent a tweet to somebody. I said, is this guy really human? I mean, the things that he's doing, that pass.
And the play before that, where he gets just annihilated from behind and somehow doesn't fumble the football.
Yes.
He got crushed on that play.
He did.
He is an absolutely great player. Jim, viewers can get free plays from us right to their cell phone. It is Rockin' Chair Easy.
Rockin' Chair Easy. Just text the word GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827, and you'll get free plays right to your cell phone. That's GAME, G-A-M-E, to 25827.
All right, we're going to come back. We will talk a little bit of college basketball next. Stick around. All right, so let's look at some college basketball.
Let's do
this weekend. And Texas is playing Kansas. It's still a honeymoon period for Shaka Smart at Texas. I know some Longhorn fans would have liked to see the team make a little more progress this year. Hasn't really happened, but he just doesn't have his players in yet to run what he wants to run. So he's kind of having to jury rig things in the meantime until he gets the recruiting process to the level he wants it down there. I think Texas will be fine down the road. Right now, it's kind of a struggle for him.
Well, you got to have the right tools, and he wants to play a certain style of basketball. I mean, they're 7-11 straight up, 1-5 in Big 12, which isn't at all what they were looking at. They're going up against Kansas, who's 17-1. This is Bill Self. He's been around forever, and he knows how to coach, and he's got all the talent in the world. A very tough team. On paper, it's a real mismatch because Kansas is that much more talented. Texas put up a fight the other night against Baylor.
Yeah, not bad.
I took 14 on that game, and that was. But I don't think Baylor is all that much either. I think they're good, but they number 1 for a week.
Oh, that was absurd.
Yeah, their strength.
They're a nice team. I mean,
their strength of schedule and their ratings off the games are not that high.
They're a team that I think probably is
top 15,
Sweet 16 material.
Top 15 team, maybe.
Yeah. And then anything can happen when you get to the Sweet 16.
Sure.
So we're not disparaging Baylor.
No. They're just not number 1 team in the country.
The worry here, and I look at this game and say, well, Texas isn't going to lay down. And they actually have done pretty well in terms of the spread record in the Big 12. They've covered 15 of their last 20 conference games, so they're hanging in there. The problem is Kansas kills losing teams at home. Got a stat here courtesy of John Cranton. 23-11-2 against the spread at home versus teams with a losing road record, which Texas has. So Kansas has the ability to beat up a team, and they're not bad about pulling away at the end of games while they're singing Rock Chalk Jayhawk in the stands. I don't say that it's an attempt to beat the spread or anything like that. They have killer instinct, and teams like that cover spreads. They've also got a great freshman in Josh Johnson. This kid's tremendous.
The key to covering
Josh
spreads
Jackson,
when you're a favorite, as they will be, and it'll be big. At the end of the game, when the fouling starts and Texas starts to, they want to come back, and if they happen to be close to the line, then it starts to get a little edgy. You're squirming in your seat if you're watching it, because then Kansas got to go to the line and hit the free throws. And in the last 2 minutes of a college basketball game, it's really something that if you're going to bet on these teams, you really need to have an idea of their capability of covering a spread in those last 2 minutes. If they happen to be ahead, if it happens to be around the point spread and they have to hit the front end of one-on-ones or whatever it is, two shots, because if they start missing, the other team comes back, they're coming down, they're throwing in threes, they're crashing the boards, the calls might be missed, and a lot of things can happen. We see this every night in college hoops. You really have to dig in to the ability of these teams at the foul line at crunch time.
And to not turn the ball over.
The handling the ball. I mean, that was the Baylor-West Virginia game.
Yep.
West Virginia, pressing style, one of the top teams in the country, cannot shoot free throws. They just don't do it. But they are tough at that end. I think Baylor turned the ball over 29 times.
Oh, yeah, they had a terrible game.
Yeah, they just couldn't handle the ball, couldn't handle the pressure. Styles in college basketball means an awful lot, as it does in pro basketball, except that in college basketball they're playing with intensity, 90 to 100% intensity every game. In the pros it might be 30%.
Yeah.
So it's a different game.
Let's look at another game in Wisconsin and Minnesota. This is a good rivalry game. The Golden Gophers have definitely made some strides under Richard Pitino this year. Very athletic team. What they haven't been able to do, they're going to have to convince me they can win a big game against a perceived better opponent. You get the two losses to Michigan State stand out to me. One where they just let the game get away, and then the revenge meeting where they got pretty well knocked around. And even though this game's at Minnesota, I get the sense the same thing could happen. Wisconsin knows how to win basketball games. They've been there before. Greg Gard is relatively new as a head coach, but he was there while Ryan was winning all those games, and they've picked up right where they left off. In fact, some people might say that Wisconsin's might be even better now than they were previously. I like this team a lot. They're just extremely solid, fundamental, well coached, and I think even if Minnesota might have a little bit of an athletic edge, I think Wisconsin's going to go in and win that game on Saturday.
Wisconsin's the better team, no question about it. And they played Tuesday night. They played Michigan. They were home, an 11-point favorite. They could have covered this spread.
Late, yeah.
But late, as I talked about just previously, it got down to the late stage of the game, and they did not hold up their end. And it went from a 7-point to a 2-point, ended up a 4-point victory. They were 11-point favorite. They were not impressive at the end of that game. However, during the game, they had impressive moments.
Well, they had that 15-0 run fairly late in the game, which it looked like they were going to cover at that point.
Yes.
I think maybe they eased off a little bit.
Well, they could have lost the game.
I know. It got a little dicey at the end. And Michigan's not incapable of doing that stuff. They had a couple of big shots and got within the number.
And that comes down to the foul shots.
Yeah, and let's face it, Michigan also made some threes. What are you going to do? Nothing you can do if the other team puts the ball in the basket a couple of times. I don't know if Minnesota. I just don't. Minnesota's going to have to prove to me that they can win a game of this type. And until they do, if it's a close number, I'm going to have to be looking at the Wisconsin side.
I wasn't knocking Wisconsin for this game. I was knocking them for what they did. Now, what they did in that game and didn't hold up their end and didn't play well at the end is actually a wake-up call. For a good coach, that's a wake-up call. Hey, guys, just like Belichick is doing with the Patriots, hey, guys, you won the game, and you did good. You won by 18. Even if they don't talk about it, they covered the spread. But you didn't play good.
No,
now you're going to play a team that's better, or now you're going to play a team on the road. You can't play like that and come out with a victory. So it can be a wake-up call to a good coach and a good team, and it probably will be here. So Wisconsin's probably going to come up better because they played poor on Tuesday.
I would go along with that. All right. If you want to get free plays each day on a recorded message from our team of Vegas experts, here is the number to call. It's 888-478-9222.
And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Jim Feist Sports, and feel free to send me a direct message with any questions about the Vegas wagering scene.
And that's it. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week with another edition of Proline.